Hi, this is Lisiecki, and I'm really excited to be here in Seoul, in South Korea, and to be sharing music with you, both in person and here in the so-called studio. I think I'd like to talk about the Nocturne Opus 27 No. 2. It's one of my favorites, and I think many of us know it and appreciate it, and it's quite emotional, quite a special piece. It's best just to let the music speak at the beginning. In any Chopin nocturne, one of the key elements is to find your own voice and to find what emotional input you want to give to it. They're very intimate, and I think the most difficult aspect is how do you share your most intimate thoughts with others? Because, of course, the ideal situation is to play a nocturne at home by yourself in the evening and enjoy the moment. But in the reality, you have to play it in public for others. And you're sharing your most intimate emotions with others. That is a very difficult thing to do because they don't know what those emotions are. You can't explain it to them. They've not experienced that. So that is probably the biggest overarching difficulty of playing Chopin's nocturnes. Of course, even though they're technically relatively simple, you look at the score, there aren't so many difficulties. In fact, in simplicity usually lie the most difficult questions. I will start with a very basic D-flat major arpeggio that he uses for the beginning and continues in the left hand throughout the whole piece. How do you make it so that it's a statement? To me, it's as if the piece was already going, as if I just happened to turn on this music, as if you can imagine tuning your radio and in the middle of a piece you suddenly hear it. Of course it's a beginning, but I don't think it cannot, in fact, sound like a beginning. It has to be part of the flow. Even that wasn't perfect, but the idea is to make it so that it's as if you took it from the middle of the piece, and to create that emotion from the very first note, as opposed to sort of struggling to get the sound out and struggling to get the rhythm. And of course, then the right hand comes, and Chopin's irreplaceable and unique melodies are a big part of why we love his music so much. It needs to sing, it needs to have a voice, and it needs to tell a story. And I think that is the next aspect, putting those two elements together. In these nocturnes, and particularly in this one, and in some others, a key to a lot of Chopin's music is rubato, favorite subject. But the question always is, what does it mean and how do you do it? And opinions will be very different, but in my personal opinion, rubato is there to serve the music, but it should not be abused. And the issue is very easily it becomes abused, it becomes overused, it becomes something that we use as an excuse, as a way to make things easier for ourselves. And in this case, to make things easier for ourselves in the case of the left hand, because of course we have these large jumps. So what I hear often in others playing when they're learning this piece is that they have big gaps. So you go, because you need to go get the note, go come back, go get the rhythm back again. No, that is not rubato at all. That is just making it easy for yourself. And of course that makes it very difficult, I know. But that is not what Chopin intended whatsoever. So the most accurate description of rubato is, in a sense, the left hand always carries the pulse, and the right hand, so basically the harmony, the structure in the left hand, the melody is generally in the right hand, and the right hand has the freedom to do something as if you were an opera singer. And of course, Chopin loved the opera, so an opera singer takes breath, they need time to make their jumps. That is rubato, that is good rubato for me. Another aspect that makes this particular nocturne difficult is that we have in the right hand, in the melody, often it's played in thirds or in sixths or in octaves. Maybe technically that isn't so challenging. It is challenging because only one line can speak. Only one line can have the melody, and at the same time, then the secondary line, the accompaniment, has to still be musical but not interrupt. And to make that balance, to make your choice and to make that balance is very difficult. Octaves are also the worst, because if you play an octave evenly, then it becomes completely rigid, and I think you lose all musicality. So, as you can hear, the upper note of the octave is the one which I'm bringing out. The lower note you can barely hear. It's there, but that's the whole point. You don't feel like I'm playing, but rather. And I think that makes a big difference when we're having the overall musicality of the piece, as opposed to just listening to, am I playing all the right notes? And here comes the next difficult moment in this nocturne, because we get to hear that same beautiful, haunting first theme once again. I would say it's sotto voce, so it's even softer and it's even more distant. While we're tempted to sing it away and give it away, again, I think this is the moment that we take a step back and we go and really live in some calm sphere. And to create that calmness after having played a lot of drama, a lot of different things, but to come back to the simplicity, not to get too overextended, I think that's challenging. His use of enharmonics here is amazing. He goes from this D flat major to C sharp major. It's amazing. And it actually happens in this opus, because opus 27, number 1, C sharp minor. This one is D flat major. That is such a beautiful shift when put together. Here we have a dolce section. Dolce is soft or sweet. But in fact, I think you have to look at it again from the operatic sense. In opera, dolce is something very tender, and I think that is the best description. It's something that has to be from the heart and very positive and not too outgoing, not too emotional, but really like you're hugging a child and just giving it your deepest emotion. Third time we hear the theme. And this time's unique because we hear it in forte. This is actually a challenge too, because who likes playing something that is so soft and intimate in a loud dynamic? I certainly don't. I have to push myself, I have to force myself to keep it in forte. And you have to keep it in forte for the whole theme. While, of course, you don't want it to sound mechanical, you don't want it to sound just banged out, but it has to be forte. That's what Chopin wants. I think this is just a moment to give it your all, to imagine giving it this big emotion, brother. This is a statement. I feel confident, this is my melody, I've shown you twice what I can do, how magical it is, but now I'm just going to show it to you once again. Of course, now we have the incredible contrast of going into a new dimension. It's a new thematic material, and what follows is probably the most difficult passage in this nocturne. I love filigree notes. I love passages that are in pianissimo and very quick, and Chopin does a lot of these because you can shape them, you can just create. The piano is great at this. It has the capabilities to make this sort of twinkling sound, and that's what is needed here. We put this contrast away from the forte, we go into piano, we prepare it with a trill, and then we just have to take a step back. And how do you play these filigree notes? I know this is actually a question I get asked a lot, because it is very difficult. The same applies for his Nocturne Opus Posthumus in C-sharp minor. At the end, there's also passages like this. Basically, you have to just play very lightly. That's it. You have to play with the same technique and agility as if you would be playing a normal passage, but lift your hand slightly up off of the keys. Let the piano do the work. Generally, I play on very well-prepared pianos, so I don't have to worry about the instrument. On the edge of taking a risk. Not always does it work, because sometimes I'm too far off of the keys, but you have to take the risk, otherwise it can't happen. So it was almost good. It could have been slightly better, but it's the first time I'm playing anything on this piano, so I'll take it. Now, this next passage is something that has already happened and is marked con anima. Con anima is so often misinterpreted to mean something like animato. It's completely wrong. Con anima means with soul. And what does with soul mean? Aren't we always playing with soul, especially in Chopin's music? Well, with soul is a dolce, I would say, but one that is outgoing, one that is really from the depths of your emotion, and you really want to share it. Struggle to say if that's sort of a universal definition. It's a term that is almost unique to Chopin. I think Schumann also used it, but isn't very often found. So we don't really have a lot of comparison to use. But certainly, with soul means that it's something special. If Chopin has to write that it needs to have more soul added, then we have to make something special from it. suddenly, after this con anima, we have con forza, which is with force, of course. It feels so counterintuitive when you play this. At the beginning, I struggled to think, how can I play this with con forza after I just played it? But you have to sort of push yourself into that and never give it too much force. With Chopin, we're not talking about the force that you would find in Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky or something. It's still a Chopinian, Chopinesque sort of force. Now comes one of the most magical moments. Absolutely love it. And the way he does this is remarkable. So we have twice, of course, this. The second time with these additional appoggiaturas, grace notes. This is something very intimate and personal, and each interpreter decides for themselves. But to me, the best way to approach is, for the first time, to be matter of fact. It's so easy to get carried away and say, okay, well, this is so beautiful. Let me enjoy it every single note. But the second time is when it's truly magical with those appoggiaturas. And if we've already given it everything the first time, then we don't have very much left for the second. Usually that means, you've already taken some time back, you've slowed down, you've taken a few steps back. So how is it possible to do even more the second time? So I think the first time has to be very straightforward. As you can see, I like to play it on the edge of the impossible. Generally, I will have every single note speak, but sometimes it doesn't happen, and that to me is an acceptable risk. I'm often playing on the edge of the possible as far as the instrument. It doesn't matter if that's about virtuoso technique or speed, or about more often about softness. How soft can I get the instrument for it still to work? And of course, with a piano like this that I haven't played before, it's different. But to me, the ideal, of course, with a Steinway D and in a beautiful concert hall, you have this amazing sound of it just sort of dissipating into the hall, literally like little bells. Now we have a very interesting juxtaposition, because we have a very different rhythm in the right hand versus the left hand. How does that even work, that we can put those two together? And how did Chopin come up with the idea, first of all? Putting this together rhythmically is of course, a question I think each one of us has to answer personally, because it's not about just getting it rhythmically together, but about having a rallentando through that without it feeling unnatural. not so easy. And such a simple ending for this piece. It's a magical work. I love playing it, and I'm very happy I could share it with you today in a little sort of masterclass version. Thank you.